You are nothing. You have always been nothing. And everyone watching right now on live agrees with me.
What does a person become when the need for applause is stronger than the need to be good? And what happens when the universe decides it has seen enough? There is a part of Calabar that tourists don't photograph. Not the Marina Road with its painted walls and evening light. Not the museum or the resort or the waterfront that ends up in travel magazines. This part sits quieter, tucked behind the noise of the main market, where the streets are narrow and the zinc rooftops catch the afternoon sun like mirrors. The houses are small here. The yards are swept clean every morning, not because anyone is coming to visit, but because some people believe that dignity begins at your own doorstep. This is where Mama Neka lived. And this is where something very old, something far older than the city itself, decided to walk among the living one more time. If you're watching this for the first time, take a second and subscribe before we go further. This story doesn't let go once it starts. Nobody knew exactly how old Mama Neka was. The older women in the neighborhood said she had been there when they were children, sitting in the same spot near the iroko tree at the edge of a sukwa lane, watching the street the way rivers watch the land. She was small. Her back had bent forward gently over the years, the way old trees lean toward water. Her skin was dark and smooth in places, deeply lined in others. She wore the same style of wrapper every day, deep indigo with flecks of white, and around her wrist she kept a set of prayer beads that no one had ever seen her without. Brown and amber, hand-worn, old in a way that felt deliberate. Children on the street called her Mama without being told to. She never corrected them. She moved slowly, greeted people by name, and if you were going through something hard, she had a way of sitting beside you without saying much, and somehow that was enough. She had no children that anyone knew of. She sold small things, pepper, crayfish, dried uziza leaves. From a basket she carried herself, walking the lane twice a day. She never asked for help carrying it. On the mornings she went to the market, she passed through the center of the neighborhood quietly, stepping around puddles, greeting people, unremarkable in every way that the eye could see. Amaka Daniels had grown up 3 streets away, and she had spent her entire life trying to get as far from that fact as possible. She was 26 now, with a ring light in the corner of her rented apartment, a phone mount bolted to a selfie stick, and a following of 84,000 people who knew her as Amaka Glow. Her content was a mix of things: lifestyle, fashion, street commentary, what she called real talk. She was sharp with words. She had a way of performing confidence that read as genuine on camera. Her thumbnails were bright. Her hooks were fast. She had figured out early on that cruelty disguised as humor moved faster than kindness, and she had leaned into that the way some people lean into a bad habit, slowly at first, then all at once. She lived well for what she earned. Not comfortably, the rent was always close to the edge, but visibly. She wore things that photographed well. She went to the new places when they opened. She talked about her life online as though it were already the life she wanted, and enough people believed her that it started to feel real. The morning of the 5th of March started like every other morning on a sukwa lane. The bread seller passed before 7. The children in the yellow school uniforms moved in clusters toward the junction. Mama Neka was at her spot near the iroko tree by the time the sun had fully cleared the rooftops, her basket beside her, her beads looped around her wrist, her eyes soft and unhurried in the way of someone who has all the time in the world because she understands what time actually is. Amaka had been filming since 6. She was doing a walking vlog. She told her followers. Something spontaneous, something raw. She wanted to show real Calabar, she said. What she meant was that she wanted content. The market visit had been flat. The roadside food she tried hadn't delivered the reaction she needed. She was walking back through the lane, phone up, talking fast, scanning the street the way a person scans a buffet, looking for something worth picking up. Then she saw Mama Neka. She didn't stop filming. She walked toward the old woman with the phone aimed, already talking. She described her to the audience the way you describe furniture, the bent back, the basket, the old wrapper. She used the word ancient. The comments started moving fast. Laughing emojis. Fire emojis. People tagging friends. Amaka fed off it. She moved closer. She asked Mama Neka a question she did not want answered. the kind of question that's really a performance directed at someone else. The old woman looked at her calmly. She didn't smile the nervous smile of someone trying to appease. She didn't shrink. She looked at Amaka the way deep water looks at a stone that has just been thrown into it. Absorbing, patient, unmoved. That stillness irritated Amaka more than any response could have. A bigger account had reposted with a different caption. Amaka responded with the confidence of someone who has survived small controversies before. She made another video, calm, dismissive, unbothered. She said it was just content. She said the old woman was fine. But her hand, the one she had pushed with, had started to ache. She told herself it was from holding the phone. She stretched it. She ignored it. By the second day, the ache had moved into her shoulder. She went to sleep early and woke at 2 in the morning from a dream she couldn't hold on to. Only the feeling of it remained. Something vast and very old standing at the edge of something she couldn't name, watching her. She sat up in the dark. The beads on her dresser caught the small light from under the door, amber and brown, and for a moment they seemed to pulse. She blinked. They were still. She told herself she was tired. She did not pick up the beads. She could not explain why. On the third day, her ring light stopped working. Her internet dropped 3 times during a scheduled live. 2 brand partnerships she had been negotiating went quiet. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing that could be pointed to directly. Just a series of small silences where there had been noise. She sat in her apartment that evening and felt, for the first time in a long time, genuinely unsettled. She opened her camera roll and looked at the clip. She watched Mama Neka's face in the moment after the push. She watched it 3 times. Something in that expression would not leave her. This is a good place to stop and ask you something, because this story is about to go somewhere most people don't see coming. If this is your first time here, you already know the kind of stories we tell on this channel. Subscribe now and turn on the bell, so the next one finds you before someone else spoils it. By the 4th day, people had found Mama Neka. The culture journalist had gone to a Sukwo lane with a camera, expecting to find a frail old woman. What he found instead was something he described in his follow-up piece as deeply disorienting. The neighbors spoke about Mama Neka the way people speak about weather or water, as something that had always been there and that operated by its own logic. One woman, in her 70s herself, said she remembered Mama Neka being old when she was a child. Another said the iroko tree beside her spot had died twice and come back, and both times Mama Neka had been the one sitting beside it when the new leaves appeared. The journalist wrote it as color, local superstition, community mythology. He didn't know what else to do with it, but the piece traveled fast. And the question it raised, who exactly was this woman Amaka had pushed, moved through the internet the way certain questions do, growing heavier as it moved. On the morning of the 5th day, Amaka woke to her phone already vibrating. Not with notifications, with a call. A friend who lived near a Sukwo lane. The voice was strange, hushed in the way people get hushed when something happens that the usual vocabulary isn't built for. She said, "You need to come here." She said, "I don't know how to tell you this." She said, "People are saying Mama Neka has not been seen since the night of your video. Not missing. Not gone. Just not seen." Her basket was at the iroko tree. Her spot was empty. The swept patch of ground where she always sat was clean the way it always was. But the feeling of the street, people said, was different. Like a room after a large piece of furniture has been removed. You don't always see what filled a space until it's gone. Amaka drove there herself. She stood at the iroko tree. The basket was there. The ground was swept. She looked at the spot where Mama Neka had stood when she pushed her. And she stood there for a long time without her phone, without her ring light, without an audience. In her bag, the prayer beads were there. She had brought them without deciding to. She placed them at the base of the tree. She didn't film it. What happened next was not a single dramatic moment. This is where people expect the story to deliver something visible. A punishment, a sign, a closing of a loop that makes everything feel settled. What happened instead was subtler and in some ways heavier. Amaka's account didn't get suspended. She didn't get sick. She didn't lose everything in a week. What happened was that the part of her work that had always been driven by contempt, The content built on mocking, the humor that required a target, stopped working. She started posting less. Then differently. Slower things. More honest things. Mama Neka was never seen on Asukwa Lane again. The neighbors continued to sweep the area near the iroko tree. Here is the question this story leaves behind. If you had been one of the 22,000 people watching that live stream, and you saw the push happen in real time, what would you have done? Would you have scrolled past? Would you have laughed because everyone else was? Or is there a version of you that would have said something, even knowing the crowd was going the other way? Because that moment, not Amaka's moment, but yours, is the one this story was actually about. Drop your answer below. And if someone you know needs to hear this today, send it to them without explaining why. They'll understand.